Something unusual is already moving behind the curtain of your life, chosen one. And even if you cannot name it yet, your spirit has been sensing the pressure of a shift that refuses to stay hidden. For a while, things may have felt strangely suspended, as if the air around you has been thick with invisible activity, as if conversations have changed tone, as if delays have been whispering instead of simply blocking, as if life itself has been rearranging furniture in rooms you have not entered yet. That is because a new contract, a new assignment, a new opportunity, a new level of access is approaching. But it is not coming through the front door in the ordinary way you once imagined. It will not look like a smooth announcement, a perfectly timed invitation, or a neatly packaged reward that arrives with a label explaining itself. Before it fully appears, there will be a strange confirmation, something that feels too specific to ignore and too unusual to dismiss. A sign, a repeated phrase, a name that returns, a dream that lingers, a document, a conversation, a delay that strangely helps you, or a moment so odd it interrupts your usual logic. This is not random confusion. This is spiritual confirmation. This is the kind of evidence that unsettles the mind just enough to awaken the deeper sight within you. What first appears strange may actually be the fingerprint of God on the doorway ahead. So stay with this message until the end, because what is coming to you is not just another chance. It is a real opening connected to purpose, timing, and alignment. And if this word confirms what your spirit has already been feeling, take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment saying, "I am ready for the confirmation." Because sometimes your spoken agreement becomes the first act of stepping into what heaven has already prepared. And as this unusual movement begins to make more sense, you need to understand that something new is being prepared for you. Not in theory, not in vague language, but in the real architecture of your life, where old cycles are quietly closing and new ones are being assembled with precision. You are entering a season where what once defined you can no longer contain you. Certain patterns are ending, certain limitations are expiring, certain environments are losing their hold, and certain doors that seemed permanently shut are becoming irrelevant because your future is no longer tied to them. This is why some things around you have felt dry, repetitive, or strangely unfulfilling lately. It is not always because you failed. It is often because you have outgrown what used to fit. There comes a point in the life of a chosen one when old cycles do not merely break, they become too small for the weight of the calling that is now rising within. You may have tried to revisit old dreams, old habits, old methods, old versions of yourself, only to discover that they no longer carry peace. That discomfort is not punishment, it is evidence of transition. You are being moved from one level of stewardship to another, and what is coming is not merely about receiving something external, it is about becoming someone more aligned internally. That is why this new contract or opportunity means more than money, more than status, more than visibility, and more than applause. It represents access. It represents elevation. It represents movement into a different dimension of purpose, where your gifts are not just noticed, but positioned, where your endurance is not just admired, but utilized, where your story is not just about survival, but about assignment. Many people think opportunity is simply about gain, but divine opportunity is about placement. It is about being set where your obedience, wisdom, and preparation can finally meet the right structure. It is about being entrusted with a space where your life makes greater sense. It is about access to rooms, conversations, resources, and responsibilities that were once beyond reach because the timing was not yet mature. So if you have felt hidden, delayed, or overlooked, you need to know that what has been forming for you has been developing in silence for far longer than you realize. What is coming did not begin this week. It did not begin with your latest prayer, your latest disappointment, or your latest effort. It has been forming quietly through seasons you thought were empty. It has been taking shape while you were being tested, corrected, pruned, and refined. While you were wondering why things moved so slowly, heaven was working with a patience deeper than your frustration. While you were asking why others seemed to move ahead faster, God was building something with stronger roots beneath your feet. chosen ones often suffer under the burden of invisible preparation, because nothing wounds the human heart quite like carrying real potential inside a season that offers little visible proof. You know there is more in you, yet your environment does not reflect it. You feel called, yet you remain unseen. You remain faithful, yet the breakthrough delays. But silence is not absence. Hiddenness is not rejection. Delay is not denial when God is developing weight-bearing capacity in you. In fact, many of the most important opportunities in your life require a version of you that could not have carried them a year ago. That is why preparation often feels unfair before it feels merciful. At the time, it feels like restriction. Later, you recognize it as protection. At the time, it feels like God is withholding. Later, you realize He was calibrating. The opportunity forming for you has needed your character to catch up with your calling, your discernment to catch up with your desire, and your stability to catch up with your potential. And that is why what is coming is connected to alignment, not luck. Luck is random. Alignment is deliberate. Luck has no memory, but alignment is built from every hidden lesson, every closed door, every correction, every season of restraint, every prayer prayed through tears, every moment you chose integrity when compromise would have been easier. The world may call it timing, coincidence, or chance, but heaven knows the difference between accident and arrangement. What is approaching your life is not the product of random fortune. It is the result of divine order meeting your prepared season. Alignment means that what is arriving now fits who you are becoming. It means the opportunity will not merely flatter your ego, but engage your purpose. It means the new level will ask something of you, not just give something to you. It means this is not just about escape from hardship, but about entrance into responsibility. That is why you should not envy the paths of those who received quickly what they could not sustain deeply. Your journey has been different because your assignment is different. And even now, heaven has already begun shifting circumstances to make room for your next chapter. Some relationships may be fading, some assumptions may be collapsing, some plans may be changing, some doors may be closing with a finality that surprises you. Do not interpret all of this as loss. Sometimes divine preparation sounds like removal before it looks like arrival. Sometimes the furniture must be taken out before the room can reveal its real size. Heaven knows how to clear a path before the blessing becomes visible, and that clearing process often feels uncomfortable because it interrupts the familiar. Yet if you look closely, you may see that the things leaving your life are often the very things that would have crowded what is now trying to enter. And as these changes begin to create new space around you, it becomes easier to understand why the confirmation feels strange. Because when God confirms a major shift, He often does not choose the polished route that human logic expects. The confirmation may not come as a grand announcement with perfect wording and immediate clarity. It may come through an odd repetition, a quiet inner stirring, a name you keep hearing, a dream that will not fade, a conversation that feels loaded with more meaning than it should, a document that appears at an unusual time, a sudden call that interrupts your routine, an unexpected delay that redirects everything, or a feeling that follows you with unusual persistence. Human beings are trained to trust what looks organized, official, and easy to explain, but spiritual confirmation often enters life sideways. It catches the mind off guard because it is not trying to impress your surface thinking. It is trying to awaken your discernment. There is a reason God sometimes confirms great movements through strange details. If the sign were too ordinary, you would file it away with the rest of your routine. If the signal were too polished, you might credit human timing alone. But when the confirmation carries an unusual edge, it forces you to pause. It interrupts the autopilot of daily life. It creates a holy disturbance. You begin asking questions. You begin noticing patterns. You begin sensing that something beneath the visible layer is trying to get your attention. This is why some of the most powerful confirmations in life first arrive disguised as interruptions. Moses saw a bush burning without being consumed. Joseph received dreams before he received the throne. Samuel heard his name in the night before he understood the voice calling him. Again and again, divine movement breaks into ordinary reality with a strangeness that separates it from the noise of the world. Not because God delights in confusion, but because he knows how easily people ignore what feels common. The strange nature of the sign is what separates it from ordinary life. It is the flare in the dark sky, the unexpected knock, the sentence that lands with unusual weight, the delay that mysteriously preserves you from the wrong turn. It is not always dramatic in appearance, but it is distinct in effect. You cannot shake it easily. It returns to your thoughts. It keeps echoing. It follows you into prayer. It makes your spirit lean in. That is how discernment is often activated, not through spectacle alone, but through repeated resonance. The strange confirmation keeps pressing on the same place until you recognize that this is not random mental traffic. This is a signal. And what seems odd is actually meant to awaken discernment, because discernment rarely grows in environments where everything is obvious. It grows where you must learn the difference between appearance and essence, between noise and direction, between urgency and timing, between emotional impulse and spiritual leading. The chosen one is often trained through patterns that others overlook, because your future will require a sharper kind of sight. You cannot afford to live only by what is immediately visible. You must learn to notice what carries weight, what repeats with purpose, what disturbs your spirit for a reason, what brings peace, even when it arrives in unfamiliar wrapping. So when the confirmation feels strange, do not reject it too quickly. Sit with it, pray over it, observe what repeats, notice what returns. Ask not only what it looks like, but what it is doing inside you. Is it waking you up? Is it redirecting you? Is it exposing where you have been asleep? Is it calling your attention toward a space you have ignored? Many chosen ones miss their own confirmations because they are waiting for certainty to arrive in a language they already understand. But God often speaks just outside the boundaries of your expectations, so that your dependence shifts from control to trust. And that leads naturally into the deeper truth that the opportunity itself will first appear unclear, because divine opportunities are rarely handed over with every layer visible at once. At first, the new contract or assignment may not make complete sense. It may look incomplete, unusual, small, risky, or even mildly disappointing compared to the picture you had in your mind. It may not arrive with the title you expected, the salary you imagined, the audience you thought it would have, or the external glamour you once associated with breakthrough. It may come disguised as a beginning when you were expecting a crown. It may look like a conversation instead of a platform, a draft instead of a finished structure, a seed instead of a harvest. And because of that, the chosen one may feel tempted to dismiss it. This is one of the great tensions of spiritual maturity, because people often pray for divine opportunity while unconsciously demanding that it match their personal script. They want the answer, but only if it arrives in familiar packaging. They want the door, but only if it resembles the doors they have already imagined. Yet God is not obligated to meet your expectations in order to fulfill his promise. In fact, many of his greatest openings first appear in forms that test whether you value purpose more than appearance. Think about how often the beginning of something sacred looks smaller than the destiny attached to it. A shepherd boy with no throne in sight, a manger before a kingdom, a little oil in a widow's jar before overflow, a few loaves before abundance. Heaven has always enjoyed planting vast outcomes inside unassuming beginnings. That is why the first appearance is not the full story. Clarity comes in stages. First there is the nudge, then there is the sign, then there is the partial opening, then there is the invitation to trust, then comes unfolding understanding. This gradual revelation protects you from trying to control what you were meant to walk by faith into. If you saw the entire map at once, you might rush, manipulate, boast, or panic. But when clarity comes in stages, your dependence deepens. You learn to move with God rather than ahead of him. You learn to recognize that some things are only understood through obedience, not analysis alone. This does not mean you abandon wisdom. It means wisdom includes patience. It means you do not despise the partial form of what may later reveal itself as the real answer you prayed for. Often the reason the opportunity first appears unclear is because it is arriving at the intersection of your old identity and your new one. You are seeing it through the eyes of someone who is still shedding outdated assumptions. You are measuring it with standards formed in a previous season. But as your discernment sharpens, what once looked small may begin to look strategic. What once felt strange may begin to feel precise. What once seemed incomplete may reveal itself as an entry point rather than a final picture. Chosen one, do not let first impressions become final judgments when God is unfolding something layer by layer. There are blessings that only reveal their weight after you honor their beginning. There are opportunities that look ordinary until the right spirit touches them. There are contracts that seem modest until you understand the access they create. There are assignments that do not flatter your ego at first because they were sent to develop your authority, not your image. This is why patience is not passive. It is one of the highest forms of spiritual intelligence. It allows you to remain open long enough to see beyond appearances. It stops you from rejecting the future simply because it did not introduce itself in a familiar accent. And if this message is reaching the exact place in you that has been sensing an unusual shift, then hold that feeling carefully, because what has seemed delayed may actually be nearing language. What has seemed strange may actually be confirmation, and what has seemed unclear may be the very doorway through which your next chapter begins. And as the opportunity begins to come into view, you must understand that this moment is not merely about excitement, relief, or emotional release, because this is a test of discernment, not desperation. That distinction matters more than many chosen ones realize, because when you have waited a long time, suffered long delays, endured repeated disappointments, and lived through seasons where hope itself felt expensive, the soul can become vulnerable to anything that looks like movement. After enough closed doors, even an unlocked gate can feel like a miracle. After enough silence, even the wrong voice can sound like an answer. After enough frustration, even a partial escape can tempt you to call it destiny. But desperation is a dangerous interpreter. It makes people confuse speed with confirmation, attention with honor, urgency with purpose, and opportunity with alignment. Desperation does not ask whether a door is right, it only asks whether it is open. Discernment, however, has a holier rhythm. It does not bow to panic. It does not rush because of fear. It does not move simply because something glittered in the dark. It slows down enough to test the spirit, examine the pattern, and notice whether peace is present beneath the excitement. This is why you must not run toward what appears before you simply because you are tired of waiting. You must not make covenant with the first thing that notices your hunger. The enemy understands weariness. Life understands fatigue. And many false openings appear precisely when the chosen one is exhausted enough to settle. Some doors come not because they are meant for you, but because your weakened emotions make you easier to persuade. That is why wisdom in this hour is not passive weakness. It is spiritual strength under control. You are being tested to see whether you can discern wisely instead of reacting emotionally, whether you have learned to separate the ache of your history from the accuracy of your present. Many people miss divine opportunity, not because God failed to send it, but because they grabbed something else too quickly. They answered from the wound instead of from the spirit. They said yes because they were lonely, tired, under pressure, or eager to prove that the waiting season was finally over. But the chosen one must become mature enough to know that not every open door is divine. Some doors are distractions dressed as relief. Some invitations are merely alternatives, not assignments. Some contracts offer visibility but steal peace. Some arrangements flatter the ego but drain the soul. Some opportunities answer a temporary insecurity while quietly sabotaging a permanent calling. So your task in this hour is not to worship motion. Your task is to recognize the pattern. The real door will carry a distinct confirmation that keeps repeating. It will not rely on manipulation. It will not need constant emotional chaos to keep your attention. It will not demand that you betray your integrity in order to enter. Instead, it will echo. It will return. It will carry a strange consistency that outlasts mood, outlasts fear, and outlasts the momentary thrill of being noticed. There will be something about it that keeps resurfacing with weight. A phrase returns. A symbol repeats. A conversation lands with deeper significance. An internal nudge persists. A new layer of clarity appears after prayer. The confirmation may still be unusual, but it will not be random. That repetition is important because divine confirmation often comes in patterns rather than pressure. Pressure says decide now or lose everything. Confirmation says pay attention because this matters. Pressure creates inner scrambling. Confirmation creates sober awareness. Pressure makes you feel hunted. Confirmation makes you feel summoned. Learn the difference because your future depends on it. You are being called to slow down, observe, and recognize the pattern with more seriousness than your emotions may initially prefer. The human mind often wants immediate certainty, but the spirit often receives truth through accumulation, through repeated witness, through deepening peace, through a resonance that grows stronger instead of fading. When something is truly for you, time does not always make it weaker. Often time reveals its integrity. What is false often grows louder, more manipulative, more exhausting the longer it stays around. What is true often grows clearer, steadier, and more coherent. That is why slowing down is not a lack of faith. It is an act of honor toward the weight of what may be entering your life. Haste belongs to fear. Wisdom belongs to those who can hold their desire without letting desire become their master. Discernment will protect you from false offers and guide you toward the real one, because discernment is one of the greatest guardians of destiny. It is the ability to sense not just what is possible, but what is aligned. It knows that a blessing out of season can behave like a burden. It knows that something attractive can still be wrong. It knows that the wrong yes can delay the right one. And because God is merciful, He is not merely sending you opportunity. He is deepening your sight so that when the real thing appears, you will not miss it. And when the counterfeit appears, you will not worship it. And as this test of discernment begins separating the holy from the hurried within you, you also need to understand that the strange confirmation will break your doubt. Because part of the reason this sign has been arriving in such unusual ways is that your skepticism has become too strong to be interrupted by ordinary signals. The chosen one has often been fighting internal doubt for far longer than other people can see. Outwardly, you may still function, still speak faithfully, still show up with strength, but inwardly, there has been a quieter battle. The battle between what you believe in principle and what you fear in practice. Past disappointments leave residue, delays leave questions, rejections create mental grooves, doors that almost opened can wound the imagination. Promises that seemed near and then vanished can make the heart cautious in ways that look wise on the surface, but are sometimes rooted in pain. After enough frustration, even hopeful people begin protecting themselves from hope. They still pray, but not with the same openness. They still listen, but with a guarded ear. They still want breakthrough, but they begin rehearsing disappointment so they will not be shocked again. This is one of the most exhausting places for a chosen one to live, because doubt does not always sound like rebellion. Sometimes it sounds like self-protection. Sometimes it dresses itself as realism. Sometimes it says, do not expect too much. Do not get your hopes up. Do not read too much into anything. Do not believe until it is fully in your hands. There is some practical wisdom in caution, but if caution is left untreated by faith, it eventually becomes a ceiling. It becomes the lens through which every possible blessing is reduced before it has the chance to breathe. That is why the confirmation coming to you will be unusual enough to interrupt your skepticism. It will not merely decorate your expectations. It will confront them. It will arrive with a quality that forces the doubting part of you to stop and look again. This is mercy. God knows how disappointment has shaped your reflexes. He knows the inner arguments you have rehearsed in silence. He knows the tension between your faith and your fatigue. So he does not always send confirmation in a form that can be easily ignored. Sometimes he sends it in a way that is too specific, too repeated, too well-timed, too symbolically precise to dismiss as coincidence. It catches your attention in a way you cannot easily ignore, because it bypasses the worn-out reasoning loops that disappointment built inside you. It reaches deeper than your mental defenses. It taps the place in you that still knows the voice of God beneath the noise of your fears. This is why the sign may feel startling. It is not arriving merely to inform you. It is arriving to interrupt something. It is meant to break the spell of chronic skepticism. It is meant to loosen the grip of internal confusion. It is meant to restore confidence in what God is doing, not because you suddenly become naive again, but because you begin to remember that your history of disappointment is not the author of your future. The sign is meant to silence confusion in the sense that it narrows the field of internal noise. It gives your spirit something real to anchor to. It does not necessarily reveal every detail, but it strengthens your ability to trust that there is in fact a real movement happening. Doubt thrives in fog. Confirmation cuts through fog like a beam. Doubt multiplies questions until action feels impossible. Confirmation does not answer every question, but it introduces enough holy clarity that you can stop living as though nothing good is coming. This matters because a person who cannot believe anything is coming often mishandles what is already near. The chosen one who remains trapped in disappointment may overlook the very evidence they prayed for. So this strange confirmation is not just a sign about the opportunity, it is also a healing instrument for your perception. It is retraining your inner world to recognize that God still knows how to speak, still knows how to guide, still knows how to confirm, still knows how to arrive in your story with precision after long silence. The unusualness of the sign is part of its healing power. It breaks the numbness, it awakens attention, it reintroduces wonder to a heart that has become cautious. And once your inner doubt begins to lose its throne, you become able to see another truth more clearly, which is that someone or something is about to validate your value. This opportunity is connected to recognition, and that recognition is not shallow applause. It is not merely being seen for the sake of being admired. It is something weightier than that. A person, organization, platform, leader, or system is about to see the value in you that has long existed beneath the surface. For a long time, what was real in you may have remained underappreciated, misread, minimized, or simply hidden by timing. You may have carried substance in environments that only celebrated noise. You may have offered depth to people who only understood image. You may have been planted in places that benefited from your gifts, but never named their worth. This happens often in the lives of chosen ones because hidden preparation rarely receives immediate human validation. Some of the strongest people spend years being underestimated precisely because their strength was not designed to perform for shallow approval. But hidden does not mean wasted. Overlooked does not mean empty. Unrecognized does not mean unvaluable. In fact, many of the gifts that matter most are developed in obscurity, so they are not corrupted by premature applause. Yet there comes a moment when what was overlooked begins to become visible, and when that moment arrives, it can feel both relieving and disorienting. Relieving, because at last something in the outer world is matching what heaven has known all along. Disorienting, because when you have lived unseen for a long time, recognition can feel almost unreal. The opportunity or contract coming toward you is not only about external success, it is also about the validation of gifts, endurance, and hidden preparation. It is evidence that what you carried in silence had substance. It is proof that the years of inner building were not imaginary. It is the moment when capacity meets context. Sometimes this validation comes through a person who notices what others missed. Sometimes it comes through an institution suddenly opening its gates. Sometimes it comes through an audience that finally responds to the depth you have carried for years. Sometimes it comes through a leader who has the authority to call forth what has been dormant in your public life. However it arrives, the meaning is deeper than simple advancement. It is heaven allowing something to surface at the right time. This does not mean you should now build your identity on the opinions of people. The chosen one must never become addicted to validation. But neither should you pretend validation has no place in the story. God often uses external recognition as a form of placement, a way of positioning you where your stewardship can multiply. Being seen by the right person at the right time can change the architecture of a season. Being acknowledged by the right system can create access that years of hidden labor alone could not produce. The point is not that people define your value. The point is that your value is becoming harder to ignore. You are stepping into a moment where what you carry can no longer remain hidden. The quality in you is reaching a stage where it disrupts invisibility. This may include your wisdom, your character, your resilience, your creativity, your voice, your discernment, your ability to build, your ability to lead, your ability to endure without collapsing, your ability to carry weight without performance. Some people will notice your gift. Others will notice your consistency. Others will be struck by your peace under pressure. Others will finally understand that what seemed quiet in you was never emptiness, but depth. And because this recognition is arriving in the right season, it will not simply flatter you. It will locate you. It will call you into a more accurate place. It will put language around what has long been real, but unnamed. Yet to fully receive that recognition without mishandling it, you must also understand that the delay was preparation for the right offer. Because what once felt like rejection or stagnation was often protection wearing rough clothing. This is one of the hardest lessons for people to accept while they are still inside the delay. Very few people wake up inside a painful waiting season and say, "This is mercy." Most say, "Why is this taking so long? Why am I being overlooked? Why do others keep moving while I remain suspended? Why does every near opportunity disappear? Why does the answer keep stretching just out of reach?" These are honest questions. But with time, many chosen ones discover that the delay protected them from saying yes too early, too cheaply, or too blindly. Had certain doors opened when you first wanted them, you might have entered them with the wrong motives, the wrong maturity, the wrong standards, or the wrong people attached. You might have accepted a smaller version of your future because impatience made it feel sufficient. You might have confused access with assignment and handed your energy to something that only looked correct because it arrived before the real thing. Delay refines the eye. Delay burns off fantasy. Delay reveals what you are actually willing to compromise for relief. The truth is that many people do not know their standards until waiting tests them. It is easy to say you want what is aligned. It is harder to keep refusing what is almost right when you are tired. But that is exactly how spiritual maturity grows. You are being prepared so that you would not say yes to the wrong contract out of impatience. Every postponed answer, every slowed timeline, every situation that forced you to remain in the tension a little longer was shaping your standards, wisdom, and maturity. You began learning what peace feels like and what performance feels like. You learned that flashy is not the same as fruitful. You learned that fast is not always faithful. You learned that not everything that wants you is qualified to hold you. You learned that access without honor is expensive. You learned that opportunities can carry hidden costs. You learned to ask deeper questions. You learn to notice how something affects your spirit, not just your ego. These are not small lessons. These are the kinds of lessons that protect an entire future. The delay was not merely about teaching patience as a moral virtue. It was about constructing discernment sturdy enough to survive success. It was about cleansing your appetite so you would stop mistaking crumbs for covenant. It was about strengthening your inner life so you could recognize the right offer, not just because it looked good, but because it fit your becoming. Now that the timing is right, the right opportunity can be trusted and recognized with a different quality of peace. That does not mean it will be effortless. It does not mean there will be no mystery, but it will not carry the same inner abrasion as the wrong doors did. The right thing may still stretch you, but it will not require you to betray yourself to enter. The right thing may still challenge you, but it will not leave you feeling spiritually cornered. Divine timing prevents costly mistakes precisely because it refuses to let you inherit prematurely what your soul cannot yet govern well. Many delays are really divine edits. They remove the people who would have polluted the season. They expose your unresolved motives. They dismantle your illusions. They train you to hear better. They deepen your capacity to carry what is precious without wasting it. So do not rewrite your waiting season as useless pain. It may have saved you from versions of success that would have exhausted, diminished, or scattered you. And now, because the right offer is nearing, you must be ready for the final truth in this stretch of your journey, which is that this new contract carries responsibility. The coming opportunity is not just a blessing, it is also a weight. It is not just a reward for all you endured, it is also a trust. Many people love the language of elevation until they encounter the demands that elevation places on the soul. Everyone likes the idea of more access, more influence, more provision, more visibility, more impact. Fewer people think immediately about the increased accountability that comes with being entrusted at a higher level. But heaven does. God does not elevate merely to comfort, He elevates to position, and positioning always includes responsibility. This means the chosen one must be ready to carry new weight, make better decisions, and protect what is being entrusted to them. The new contract, assignment, role, platform, or opportunity may appear as an answer to prayer, and it is, but answers from God often come braided with stewardship. What will you do with what is given? How will you manage access? How will you handle recognition? How will you respond when the room gets bigger, the demands grow sharper, the temptations become subtler, and the margin for carelessness decreases? These are not questions meant to frighten you. They are questions meant to prepare you. With elevation comes accountability, because the higher the placement, the more consequential your choices become. A person at a deeper level of influence can bless more people, but can also damage more through immaturity. A person with greater access can build more, but can also lose more through ego. A person whose gifts become visible must guard their inner life more carefully, not less. This is why the opportunity coming to you is not only a celebration of survival, it is an invitation to steward the future well. Surviving the past made you strong. Stewarding the future will require you to become wise in new ways. You will need humility, because pride has a way of sneaking into seasons where long denied value is finally acknowledged. You will need discipline, because increased access without structure can become chaos. You will need discernment, because new levels attract both genuine allies and strategic distractions. You will need emotional regulation, because not every voice in the next season deserves equal access to your spirit. You will need boundaries, because a gift without protection becomes vulnerable to overuse and depletion. You will need gratitude, because gratitude keeps the heart clean when opportunity expands. You will need patience even in success, because not every next step should be taken at once. The blessing itself will require maturity. This is one of the hidden kindnesses of God. He does not only prepare the opportunity for you, He prepares you for the opportunity. He teaches you how to carry weight before He increases it. He works on your reflexes before He enlarges your field. He shows you the cost of impatience before He hands you something precious. So when the contract arrives, do not only celebrate that the door opened, ask for the grace to steward what entered your hands. Ask for the wisdom to remain grounded when your circumstances improve. Ask for the strength to carry influence without becoming inflated. Ask for the discipline to honor what has been entrusted. Ask for the humility to remember who opened the way. Because this next chapter is not merely about receiving a blessing. It is about becoming the kind of person who can sustain, protect, and multiply what God has finally brought within reach.